Hello and welcome back, Lady Joyful here with my 10 cards 1 kit video using the March Love From Lizi card kit. And this is my first card, which I used one of the cut parts that's almost exactly the size of a card front. I just needed to trim off a little bit. I could have trimmed it all off from the right hand side as the banner part is more towards the left, but I did take a little bit off the left as well to kind of even it out a bit. And then I'm going to use a sentiment from the stamp set. This one says, "A party without cake is just a meeting." Then I'm using my craft knife to cut a slit either edge of the banner that I can thread a ribbon in behind, and I will adhere the pink ribbon on the back of the panel just with some normal sellotape. Then I am going to attach the panel to a pink card base, and I decided it needed, well, first I'm going to put foam tape on the back, but then I decided before sticking it down that I would put some of the chocolate brown peel-offs to the top and bottom edge of the card, just leaving a little bit of the pink showing just so that that brown would show between the pink and the panel once I have the panel in place. So I will trim off the overhanging pieces with my scissors and then remove the backing from the foam tape and adhere that card into place. And that's card number 1. Card number 2, I decided to use the brown ribbon that came in the kit with the cupcake design on it. And because it's a solid ribbon, it was very easy just to put double-sided tape along the back of the ribbon. And I'm using the lines on my grid mat to help me line up the ribbon so that I get it as straight as possible. And I'm just using my scissors as a weight to hold the card properly closed. Although once I've got the first couple of pieces of ribbon in place, I can use the tape from those to hold the card down to the table. Then I'll just tuck the ends over on the inside, and if you think that looks a bit messy, you can always add a panel on the inside to disguise, to cover it up and hide those end pieces. Then I took one of the cut apart pieces to be my topper, and I used my corner chomper just to round off the bottom corners, and I'm going to again use the stamp set to add a sentiment across the image, and then I'm adhering the image to the card base over the top of the ribbon. I'm just using double-sided tape, not foam tape this time, and I'm using my Misty to help me get it in the right place and make sure it's right up against the edge, which completes card number 2. For card number 3, I'm making a shaker card using one of the vellum cut parts. I have some foam tape which I will cut into narrow strips, and I will adhere those behind the foiled areas of the vellum. Putting them behind the foil means I can hide them. They won't show through from behind the foil. So I will put strips all the way around, making sure there are no gaps, and I actually did a double layer of foam tape to give them the sequins plenty of space to shake around. And then I used my anti-static powder tool to remove any stickiness from the edges so that the sequins won't get caught. I'm taking a piece of 6x6 pattern paper that came in the kit, and I'm going to use this as my background piece. So I'm cutting it just smaller than my card base, and I'm using a pink card base again. Then I took one of the acetate words. This one is hello, and again I'm trying to hide my adhesive. This time I'm hiding it behind the foiled lettering, and I'm using glossy accents here as my adhesive. I'm just pressing that into place over the flowers. This probably would have been easier if I'd done it before putting the foam tape on, but it wasn't too difficult anyway. Then I'll adhere my pattern paper panel onto my card base, pressing it down into place carefully, and then I will put the sequins directly on the panel and spread them out and just make sure they're all in the right place. And then I remove the backing paper from the foam tape, and I will get my vellum pressed into place. So that was card number 3. And card number 4 is also going to use vellum. This time I'm using a circle die to cut away the outer parts of the vellum because I didn't want that green portion, I just wanted the circle. And I'm going to use this chocolate cake from the cut apart, and I just wanted the cake, so I fussy cut that out. And then I'm working on the back panel, which I'm using the kind of corrugated specialty paper. I put a strip of double-sided tape across it, and then I'm using the gold tinsel and just layering that on top of the double-sided tape. And I will trim away the excess. I just thought that was a bit of a different look, and it was wanted to find some way to use the tinsel, and this was the idea I came up with. Then my plan was to put the cake on the card base and then have vellum over it, but I didn't think the cake showed enough. So I cut the top portion of the cake away from the cake stand, so then I can adhere the cake stand to the corrugated paper and adhere the cake itself on top of the vellum, so I can line them up together so that they're still one image, but it allows the cake to still be nice and visible on top of the vellum, whilst the cake stand can be a bit more subtle, I guess, so that the words are still visible on the vellum over the top of it. Then I hid my adhesive behind the foil area again, as well as the cake, and then I was able to press the vellum into place, which completed that card. Card number 5, I'm using the stamp set, the images from the stamp set, and I'm making a tone-on-tone background, which is one of my favourite techniques, or at least one of the techniques I do a lot. So I used embossing ink and stamped some of the images all over my brown card base, and then I used the textured white card and stamped the pancake image and a sentiment just with black ink. The texture of the card gives a very unusual look, which I thought was kind of artsy and vintage looking. So I die cut that with a circle, and I die cut some of the pearlized brown paper with a larger circle, layered them together and adhered them onto the tone-on-tone patterned card base. And then just for a little extra embellishment, I'm adding some of the gems that came in the kit, just kind of randomly around the patterns, fill in some of the spaces, and then I will also put it at either end of the sentiment as well, which completes card number 5. Card number 6 ended up completely different from what I'd originally intended. I had a completely different idea, and it just turned into this as I went along. So I started by adhering the kind of almost waffle looking pattern paper all over the back of the card base. I then took a strip of the jar patterned paper and adhered that across it with peel-offs at the top and bottom. I took one of the large strip cut aparts and fussy cut it out and adhered that onto the card base, and it's slightly too long, so I had to trim off the top and the bottom. And then I added the enjoy acetate word because that fit quite nicely within the space that I had there, which completes number 6. For number 7, I am again using the stamp set, and I'm going to use my watercolour markers to colour in some of the images. I'm doing some no-line colouring. Not entirely happy with how it came out. I think I should have a go with some different colours. And then when I'd coloured them in, I die cut them with the hexagon dies that came in the kit. I added the peel-offs to the brown card base to give a kind of almost pinstripe look, and then added the For You acetate sentiment. And then I will adhere the images into place. I used double-sided tape for all except the one with the blueberries. I used foam tape for that one just to pop it up a bit. Card number 8 is probably the most complicated one I made, and it didn't work out as well as I would like. Everything went wrong with it, but I thought I'd keep it in to show you what I did so you can learn from my mistakes and maybe do it better. So I started by bending the brown wire around the edge of the heart on the vellum piece so that it matched it, and then I cut myself some of the pink marble paper, and I'm now making a front panel using this stripe paper. So I cut around 3 edges and then made a hinge so I have a window that can be opened. Then I'll adhere the marble paper to my card base. I'm using glossy accents to adhere the wire hard to the vellum, and then I put something heavy on top of that to adhere it down. And that was one of the mistakes I made using the glossy accents to adhere the wire, because it kind of leaked out and got a bit messy. Then I put foam tape all over the card base, and here again is a thing I did wrong, because I ended up doing 2 layers, but I put 1 layer of foam tape on the card base and another layer of foam tape on the back of the top panel, which made it very difficult to stick them together. And in fact I would have needed 3 layers anyway, because the foam tape I used is quite thin, so I should have had another layer at least. So then I used one of the cut parts to go on the top of my little folding window and adhered everything together, and here you can see the mechanism of how it works, and you can see that there's a bit of a bump from the wire because I didn't do it, I didn't use enough foam tape. I like the idea of it, but it didn't work as well as I would have wanted. Okay, so then card number 9, I'm going to again use circle die. I cut the outside and then I cut part of the inside of the circle away, so there's kind of an opening, and then I used the same 2 circle dies to cut the vellum flower so that I can kind of tuck the vellum into the ring of the cardboard circle, having the kind of overhanging piece going behind gave me somewhere to put my adhesive, otherwise I would have not had anywhere to hide the adhesive. So I'm using my glue pen to glue the adhesive onto the back of the ring and just trim away any excess bits that are poking out. Then I have this leftover piece of the 6x6 paper I used on an earlier card, and I'm adhering that to my card base and adding some narrow gloss to the top and bottom of it, and I will adhere the circle into place, and the vellum is loose on one edge still, but it holds in place very nicely where it's adhered to the back of the ring. For my final card I'm using the peel-offs again, and I'm making myself some stripes across the card. I started with 3, but I actually did end up putting 2 more in. And I'm going to use the hexagon letters to write happy birthday to you. Originally I was going to kind of have them more spread out, but the birthday basically filled the length of the card, so, or the width. So I decided to keep them close together. And then as an extra embellishment I am adding some of the gems in between the empty spaces of the stickers. And I used my craft knife to pick up the gems and position them in place. And that completes my final card. And here you can see an overview picture, and there's more pictures over on my blog as well if you want to see those. I hope you enjoyed this and that it inspired you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, on social media and on my blog. All that information is down in the description box below. There's also links to all the products used. You can subscribe to never miss a video. The like button is down below, and I will see you in the next video.